video, we are going to determine whether each series is converge or diverge. So let's start with the first one. So we have an equals to e to the negative 1 over square root of n. So this one, all you have to do is you take a limit, right? So you take a limit as n approaches to infinity. You have e to the negative 1 over square root of n, and then you plug in infinity. So that is negative 1 over square root of infinity. 1 divided by infinity is 0. So you have e to the 0 is equals to 1. So since 1 is a real number, then that is a converge. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So the next one we have an equals to the square root of 1 plus 4n squared divided by 1 plus n squared. So first we write the limit as n approaches to infinity of an 1 plus 4n squared divided by 1 plus n squared. And then this one, the highest power in the denominator is 2, so we have to multiply the limit as n approaches to infinity. We write this again, 1 plus 4n squared divided by 1 plus n squared. So what we have to do is we have to multiply 1 divided by the square root of n squared, 1 divided by the square root of n squared. Why we have to do this? How come with the n squared is wrapped in a square root? So here is why. So if you have the square root of a times b, that is just equals to b square root of a. But if you have square root of a times square root of b, then you get the square root of a times b. So that is equals to the square root of a times b. That means in order to multiply a and b, they both must be wrapped by the same radical. Back to this problem. So we have limit n approaches to infinity, and then we draw a big square root in the numerator. We have 1 divided by n squared, and then 4n squared divided by n squared. Denominator 1 divided by n squared plus n squared divided by n squared. So we have limit as n approaches to infinity. We have 1 divided by n squared plus 4 divided by 1 divided by n squared plus 1. So as n approaches to infinity, we have 0 plus 4 divided by 0 plus 1. So overall that equals to the square root of 4, which is equals to 2. So since 2 is a real number, then this sequence is convergent. So that is the second one. And then the next one we have, let's switch color for the next one. So the next one we have an equals to n squared divided by the square root of n to the third plus 4n. So this one we have limit as n approaches to infinity, n squared divided by the square root of n to the third plus 4n. Okay, what's the highest degree in the denominator? The highest degree in the denominator is 3. That means we have to multiply the top and bottom by 1 divided by the square root of n to the third. Because in the denominator, the n to the third is in a square root. So that means when you multiply that by some term, that term must be inside square root as well. So the top is 1 divided by the square root of n to the third. And then we do the algebra. So we have limit as n approaches to infinity. So the top is n squared, right? So the top is a second power minus what is the square root of n to the third. So the square root is 1/2. So that will be 2 minus 3 over 2. That equals to 1/2. So the top is just a square root of n. And then the bottom, inside the square root, you have n to the third divided by n to the third plus 4n divided by n to the third. So overall, you have limit as n approaches to infinity. The top is square root of n. The denominator is n plus 4 divided by n squared. So when n approaches to infinity, you have infinity divided by the square root of n to the third divided by n to the third. That is equals to 1. So 1 plus 4 divided by infinity, which is a 0. So this is just a 0. So we have infinity divided by the square root of 1 plus 0. That equals to infinity. So when the limit equals to infinity, the sequence is divergent. The last one is pretty interesting. So let's take a look at the last one. The last one, you have a cosine square. So an equals to cosine square of n divided by 2 to the n. So 2 raised to the nth power. All right. So the first one, for the cosine, so you are going to take the limit, right? So limit as n approaches to infinity, cosine square of n divided by 2 to the n. How do you do the limit of a cosine or sine function? This one you will have to use a squeeze theorem. What is the cosine function look like? The cosine function looks like this. So it's bouncing between 1 and -1, right? So we start with this. We start with cosine of n that is bouncing between -1 and 1. The range of cosine is between -1 and 1. So since we have a cosine square, then you square each side. So this will be cosine square n. The square of 1 is equals to 1. But the square root of -1, this one you have to be careful. This is a 0. Why is that a 0? Because as long I know the square root of -1 is not equal to 0. Now, to explain why that is equals to 0, can you tell me what is the graph of cosine square look like? So cosine, the range has some positive and some negative, right? So once you square the cosine, there is no more negative. That means this piece doesn't exist anymore. So instead of going down and then going back up, so we do this. So this piece is if we flip on the x-axis. So that becomes like this. So that's why cosine square is between 0 and 1. Okay, so what is the difference between the cosine square and the given domain, and not the given domain, the given sequence? So we have a divided by 2n, fine. Then we divide each side by 2 to the n. Okay, so now 0 divided by 2 to the n is 0, so that is less than or equal to cosine square of n divided by 2n less than or equal to 1 divided by 2 to the n. So what is the limit equals to? This one, the limit. So the limit as n approaches to 0, we have 1 divided by 2 to the n. So we have 1 divided by 2 to the infinity, so which is 1 divided by infinity, that is equals to 0, right? And then this one, the limit, is equals to 0. So overall, can you take a look at this right now? This thing is sandwiched between a 0 and another 0. What is this limit equal to? The limit is equals to 0 by squeeze theorem. So overall, what is an equals to? So overall, the limit as n approaches to 0, cosine square n divided by 2 to the n, that is equals to 0. So since 0 is a real number, so we say that the sequence is convergent. So that's how you answer the last question. All right, so that will be the end of this video. If you think my instruction is helpful, please subscribe, like, and share. Let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your help really, really much. I see you all in the next lesson. Signing out.